What's up, humans? You are listening to the What is Humans podcast with Shane Strunk and Dennis Kluba. Make sure to follow us on our social media pages on Instagram at What is Humans Podcast, on TikTok at What is Humans Podcast, and on YouTube at What is Humans Podcast. Today, Dennis and I are discussing Stop Apologizing. Enjoy. Hey.
Welcome back. You're listening to the What is Humans podcast with Shane Strunk and Dennis Kluba. If this is your first time listening to us, the What is Humans podcast is a personal growth podcast in which Shane and I diagnose and look back at our own lives and try and ask some questions about how we can get better. And hopefully you at home can learn some things as well and take something away to improve upon yourself. And most importantly, we are experts in almost nothing.
What's up, man?
Nothing much. I'm excited to be back in the seats. It's been a week we had like a crazy week between vacations, marathons. The whole month of April is going to be wild, but excited.
Yeah, man. I didn't have one. You had your very first marathon, so it's something that you've been building up to. You absolutely crushed it.
Yeah, thank you.
Proud of you, the work you put in, and I think the results speak for itself. So, how does that feel kind of coming off that, weeks of training and, then we'll kind of get into our topic too.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I was talking to you about it the week afterwards. But there was just a big emotional, and kind of mental letdown that I feel like not a lot of runners talk about, or people in general, after they kind of achieve a really long-term goal like a marathon, which we trained for nearly 4 months, somewhere around there. And so really now I feel like, at least speaking for myself, I'm getting back into the groove, getting hungry again, versus the first 7 or 8 days after it. It was like just no motivation, just took a lot out of me. So it's hard to get back.
In that period, you don't need to apologize for that.
Yeah.
That period.
Perfect.
Which gets us into, what are we talking about today?
Stop apologizing.
Okay. Like ever?
No. You should apologize sometimes, but.
Okay. This idea, I think I came up with it, but it's a kind of a theme around we kind of apologize too much.
Yeah.
I've seen there definitely is circumstances when you need to apologize, but for example, it's like, have you ever had that time of your life, or maybe you do this often, or maybe people around you apologize over the littlest things, like sorry for like getting into your way, or like sorry for asking you this question, or sorry for whatever it is you're doing. And I think that behavior can be unhealthy.
Yeah.
And isn't always, and I guess I just noticed it within myself.
Yeah.
That sometimes we're too quick to apologize.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to talk about today, is kind of what that means.
Yeah.
And maybe how we could look at kind of a better mindset when it comes to apologies, because I want them to be sincere, but I also don't want us to feel bad for being ourselves.
Yeah. No, I think it's really important. It's something that we gloss over a lot as individuals, as humans. I know myself as well as other, friends. I think that the times that you're talking about are these kind of almost filler or small instances where you're apologizing for things that are totally normal and or don't even need an apology to begin with, right? And then we've talked so much on this podcast about our language and our inner self-talk, and how that, has an effect on how we present ourselves and the outcomes that we hold for ourselves. So I think that it doesn't only stop at apologizing. It's somebody that says, sorry, I'm so dumb, or sorry, sorry, I'm such a klutz, or sorry, etc. When in reality, it's probably something that you're just using as, a filler, or that you don't need to say.
I think it could be like an insecurity about what the other the other person or
Yeah.
interaction or situation, how that might make you feel.
Yeah.
So it's like, you shouldn't be so bogged down in the concern of another. Like, if you need something from someone, you should be able to ask for that thing.
Yeah.
If it's, I mean, I'm in sales, so it's like, if I got hurt every time I got told no,
Yeah.
or if, like, the double email or the question I had to ask just to do my job, it's like I wouldn't get anything done. It's like, you have to understand that there is, you know, things that you need from another.
Yeah.
Things that you need for yourself. And you shouldn't be, I guess, putting up walls as to how that might affect someone else, when really it probably isn't affecting them at all.
Yeah. No, I think that you're completely right. And I love that when you said, you know, it's this pre-existing notion about how the other person feels, or immediately assuming that you're taking up their time or you're a nuisance to them, when it's a totally acceptable request that you're coming forward with. A lot of times, like you mentioned, if it's sales or really anything else, it's that you are trying to either like give them value, that you shouldn't have to apologize for coming into somebody's life in order to help make their life easier.
Yeah.
Or you understand that their time is valuable.
Yeah.
Obviously, that doesn't mean you have to apologize, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to learn, grow, etc.
Yeah.
And so starting off with an apology immediately puts you on a lower level than maybe
Right.
that other person
Yeah.
is.
It also reminds me of, I forget what was our recent topic on this, but just the ability to ask questions,
Ask for help.
ask for help.
Yeah.
Yeah. This relates a ton to just being vulnerable enough to ask questions, to be the only kid raising your hand at class.
Yeah.
Like, there's probably more people thinking of this same question. So it's kind of breaking down those barriers. In particular, in settings where we're apologizing, there is right times, and then there is a lot of times when it isn't needed at all.
Yeah. I think, too, you brought up something that really struck with me when you were talking about asking for help or talking about kids, you know, in class. A lot of times emotionally or in relationships, we apologize for how we feel. Like, we're saying, sorry that I am feeling this way. Sorry that I'm confused. Sorry that I'm, not exactly understanding what you want from me right now, communication wise.
Yes.
And when you're apologizing for the way that you're feeling, it's immediately signaling to yourself that I shouldn't be feeling this way, or this is not acceptable, and I'm weak or inept in order to, get this through mentally or emotionally, when in reality, that is just you further trying to clarify where you stand with somebody, in a relationship, or, what somebody wants to make them best operate better.
Totally.
It's like, if all I'm doing is, I don't need to apologize. Just say, hey, this is how I feel. I would like to know how we can move forward to best operate this relationship.
Yeah, that's just emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And I love the part you mentioned, a little snippet you said was on what it's signaling to yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, if you are thinking like, oh, this is wrong, or oh, I'm being crazy, or oh,
Yeah.
I'm being annoying. Like, what that is signaling is that your behavior is wrong. That your feelings should be ignored. That
Yeah.
your experience isn't your own experience.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's signaling that that isn't true. And what we should be allowed to do, which we should allow ourselves to do,
Yeah.
correct myself, is to speak what we want to speak and communicate how we should feel.
Yeah.
And that sometimes is not apologizing for things.
Yeah. I want to ask you too, because I know that you've been on both sides of this coin, and I'll comment on it as well. But how do you feel when we've explored this topic a little bit more, but also I think that we can relate to somebody that is apologizing for their feelings, apologizing for actions that they shouldn't be apologizing for. They're coming to you like just way too apologetic.
Yeah.
That's annoying as the receiver of that side.
I so agree. I was going to ask, like, how unattractive is it, or
Yeah.
annoying, like you said, or it just like don't apologize.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. Like, I know this is what you need. Like, this is something, I need to give to you, or it's a good question.
Yeah.
It's, so yes, that of the receiver, me in this case, say you asked me, you came and you apologized. I was like, dude, like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So yes, that is so, unattractive.
Yeah.
I would
And
say.
it's like, and it's a lot of times it's in regard to a valid request.
Yes.
When apologizing is the right form of action is when you recognize that there's something that you did wrong that hurt the other person, in which they almost exclusively ask for an apology.
Yeah.
I feel like, or you made a mistake on something that they've iterated multiple times in a row.
Yeah.
That's probably the right circumstance.
Yeah.
But don't ever apologize for clarifying, trying to do your job better, trying to communicate better how you feel, because that's only going to, like we said,
Yeah.
signal to yourself,
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
Yeah. And what I want to ask you is like, there is situations, there is like so much strength in forgiveness, in the ability to be sincere and to apologize. And I don't want this podcast to be around, hey, like, we should be slow to forgive. No. We should be slow to take the higher road, or to, so like slow to forgive.
Yeah.
So where is the difference between, I guess, forgiveness in this conversation
Yeah.
versus like the immediate apologizing for the smallest thing?
Yeah, this is a great question, and forgiveness is such an amazing subject and value to hit on. I think that whenever you talked about forgiveness, what struck inside of me was reflection, which we talk about a ton on this podcast, of ourselves, and recognizing when you mentioned forgiveness is a meaningful, it's a meaningful attribute, it's a meaningful thing to give to somebody else. So if you're apologizing or you're seeking forgiveness, it's because you really feel like you hurt somebody, or they've expressed that you hurt them.
That's a feeling I feel like
remorse
humans just have innately, is that, I guess, emotional awareness of wrong, of something you did. You'll hold that somewhere.
Yeah.
You could bury that. Some people
Deep.
bury that deep down, and could be narcissists, but you'll know when, we know between good and evil.
Yeah.
And that, like, understanding, if it's something that you did wrong, that's when you can seek out forgiveness, to be sincerely apologize for your actions.
Yes.
And that kind of understanding is kind of where can guide you for when to apologize. And if it's something minimal within yourself, when it comes to, I think you mentioned communication, how you feel, without the reflection of what the external might think, is when and when you shouldn't
completely
do that.
No, that's very good. My other thing was, what do you think, like, as far as when we do apologize immediately, how we view, we're talking about our signaling to ourselves, but, how do we view, like, ourselves as we're a nuisance to somebody, or we are the problem, and how that reflects on, like, I'm sorry to interrupt you, or I'm sorry to all these different things.
Like, what it does to our internal psyche from doing that.
Yeah.
I think in my experience, it just makes me feel small.
Yeah.
Like, just makes me feel, it's like you're living in fear of what the other might think, how this might look, how this might end. It's the general theme in What is Humans podcast is kind of avoiding external validation. Not that we can't be aware of it, not that we need the love from others. It's that we shouldn't be basing our decisions on that external validation, on that signaling of always having to apologize for how you communicate, for asking a question, for living your own life in the way that you're living, if it affects someone else the way you're living,
Yeah.
it's like it's your life and you don't need to apologize for the life that you live.
Yeah.
If it's what you need in your life, you don't have to apologize.
Yeah, and I think where I was kind of going, and you are segueing perfectly into it, is you said it's your life, it's your feelings, it's your actions, etc. And so it's almost like this reflection of our confidence and our sureness in ourselves. That's like, if you feel sure about how you feel, the actions you've taken, etc., there's no need to apologize for, anything that you're like, hey, like, I just truly didn't know. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I would like to know more. Can you tell me?
Yeah.
And I think that it's a telltale sign when somebody immediately comes to you and is apologizing right off the bat that they're dealing with insecurity or, like feeling like they're less than, instead of just being sure and being like, hey, I need the numbers in order to accurately do my job. Okay, perfect. You're right. I didn't give those to you.
Yeah, 100%. Where the last thing I kind of want to touch on before we get into our house is, I guess, the forgiveness side of this, of like, how do we look at and empathize with the failure or the struggles or the others' problems that they might be going through when they do bring apology to you. It's like, are we supposed to get involved? Are we quick to forgive? Are we? Yeah. It will be very dependent on the question, but I guess it's a question that I'm asking myself.
Yeah.
I was curious on what your thoughts were on that.
I think I know kind of what I do, and it kind of breeds from that topic when we talked about forgiveness before of, it gets annoying to me. I think the best thing possible, and maybe what you'd think as well, is I tell people when they're apologizing for no reason, I'm like, don't say sorry. Yeah. Stop apologizing. Yeah. Because like, it's letting them know that didn't hurt my feelings. It's not a dumb question. It's not wasting my time, etc. Like, don't apologize for how you feel. And I think that that's the best thing that you can do, as opposed to saying, like you said, forgiveness of it's okay, or saying you're forgiven or something like that. Like, I just tell them straight up, like, hey, stop. Don't. And then if it is a time when sorry is necessary, I'll say, thanks for apologizing. I appreciate it. Yes. We can move forward now.
Yes.
But most of the time I want to nip that in the butt right away and say, hey, stop. Like, it's all good. Don't think that you're taking away from me asking a real question that matters, to you.
Yes. Love that. Love that. Okay, let's get into our house. So on the topic of stop apologizing.
Yeah.
Where or how can we think about within ourselves, and then when others approach us around apologies, to stop apologizing less?
Yeah. I think that it comes with a lot of, because when I first think of it, I think of it as it's a calming thing. Like, it's like, you need to settle yourself, because I know that when I've done this in my past, I'm apologizing like I have it on the tip of my tongue, ready to say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because maybe I'm going into a situation or a boss or a conversation in which I feel less than, I'm not confident, etc.
Yeah. So
it's almost like before you go in any place where you might be nervous, it's calming yourself down and being like, hey, I'm going in to say this. This is how I feel. These are the things I need to achieve this task, etc. There's no reason for me to be, my first go-to is, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does. I think we need to think about, like, how important our words are, like what it does to others and to ourselves, the very words we speak.
Yeah.
And I think doubling down on your idea of what it's signaling to ourselves, if our words are based off of ourself and what we need, we don't need to ever apologize for what our internal needs are, I would argue. But if if it's a decision or words that we're using to please another, to seek out an external response, how they might think. That's kind of where those filler sorries come into play. The not authentic words from Shane. It's more of the how this might look.
Yeah. I think that, it's an amazing point. And I think that the one thing that struck a chord with me about that second how is, like, when people say, like, do you mean it? Like, do you mean it? And, like, apologizing, like, did they mean it? And you said, if it's coming from an internal place, like, hey, I truly am sorry.
Yeah.
Or is it that you're just saying that because you're either nervous or you're trying to fill,
Yeah.
or the other person, like, wants it? Because if you don't mean it either, you don't need to say it. And so you said it perfectly, of internal versus.
Yeah, it's like internal, create meaning in your words. Like, make sure your words are meaningful. Like, I think that's the second how of, like, if you're doing that, I think in turn, you're going to stop apologizing in unnecessary situations.
Yes.
But you'll also be able to sincerely speak how you feel and apologize when you do wrong.
Yes, completely. And then the third how, let's kind of talk about maybe that other side of the coin of when somebody's doing it to you, or we talk about forgiveness. I think it really comes down to almost being a good neighbor in that, like, recognizing that someone around you is apologizing a lot, or if somebody is always doing that, it's creating an environment where they know that they're on the same level. They don't need to apologize. That is a amazing request. That's how you feel. And I think that if they feel nervous around your presence, you need to be the equalizer and say, hey, don't apologize for that thing.
Yeah, communication's a two-way street. Create an environment with your friends, your loved ones, coworkers, where you can communicate effectively.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be fear-based questions, in those relationships.
Yeah.
If there is, you need to go out of your way to, if it's someone beneath you in a hierarchy, work setting, if it's a relationship dynamic, you need to break down those barriers in order to allow that communication. So I think, like you said, is like you need to communicate that, hey, you don't need to apologize, speak your mind, like speak how you feel, what you need, and don't be afraid of dumb questions, and it'll sort itself out from there.
Yeah, completely. Let's get into the whys a little bit.
Yeah, what was our first how?
It's basically like calming, like it's like
Okay.
center yourself in the moment.
Yes.
2 is create meaning.
Yeah.
And the third one is create that an equal environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The whys.
Yeah.
I guess my why, kind of why I maybe thought of this, is I've noticed, in work or in like friendships that I have, that there is times and people in my life that apologize too much. And I've also noticed periods in my life where I've been very quick to apologize or worried about what the other might think, and be making decisions off of that external response. And it's not something that I've solved, and I don't think will ever. I don't think I'll ever be perfect at this.
Yeah.
But it's something, if I can bring more self-awareness in the words that I use, I think that will help me create more deeper relationships, better communication of my words and of my internal needs.
Yeah. I think that for me, it's analyzing back over time, like you kind of mentioned, different times in my life where I was quick to apologize. And what I noticed is, whether it was during a breakup, it's at work when I felt unconfident or insecure about my own ability, it's immediately having that crutch of I'm sorry in order to appease, whoever I'm in the relationship with, or to make them feel better, or to make my coworkers feel like I'm just happy to be there, or like I'm happy to be on the team, etc. When it's because I wasn't feeling confident in my position, my feelings, my etc. Just because I didn't want to make them mad. I didn't want to annoy them. When in reality, if I would have taken the time to calm myself and treat myself like an equal, I would have realized that apologizing only makes me look less confident, less secure to this person that is the exact same equal within this relationship.
Yeah. Treat yourself as an equal. Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a quick recap. So today we talked about stop apologizing. It was really around the idea of how often we apologize for the littlest things,
Yeah.
and how we need to be mindful of that, because oftentimes than not, we don't need to be apologizing for our very own needs. We talked about forgiveness, both asking and receiving it,
Yeah.
and the communication dynamics within that. And then we got into our house.
Yeah, we got into our house. The first one being that you have to calm and center yourself before you're going to go into a situation like we talked about of, you're nervous or
Yeah.
you feel like you might not be at the same level as that individual. Center yourself and then create meaning by recognizing your words have meaning. So if you say things, they have to mean something.
Yeah.
If you're apologizing, be sorry.
Yeah.
If you're not sorry, then don't say I'm sorry.
Yeah. If you're speaking what you need, it will all solve it. Like, you can
Yeah.
ignore the rest of this podcast. Like, just speak what you need,
Yeah.
and you won't be apologizing as often. And you will be apologizing when you need to apologize.
Yes, completely. Then the third one was all about creating an equal environment. So kind of the other side of that relationship of if someone's always coming to you apologizing, make sure that they know that their needs are important, their questions are important, and that they're not less than.
There's no fear,
No.
in coming forward, or just allowing communication to be had between both.
Yes, completely.
And then our whys was really just a reflection for me on why this is important to speak what I need to speak, speak my internal needs, and not be making fear-based decisions on another, on external validation. And if I'm able to speak, what I need, I won't be apologizing unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And I will be apologizing when I do mess up.
Yes, completely. And for me, it was really treating myself as an equal within relationships, whether that's work, romantic relationships, etc., and recognizing that my needs, my questions, my fears are all relevant to me, and I shouldn't be apologizing for how I feel because it might make someone else feel better or less uncomfortable, etc.
Yeah. And I think that wraps another week of
What is humans?
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.